During a negotiation involving $5 million, my sister Emily was belittled by Tom, the manager of our client company. Tom, with a sneer, told her, "Don't act so high and mighty for a subcontractor," and shockingly poured the coffee he was holding over her head. "Cool down with some coffee. A useless subcontractor like you doesn't belong here." Ah! Emily stood there, coffee dripping from her hair and soaking into her clothes from her shoulders to her collar. I hurriedly tried to rush over, but immediately after, Emily sharpened her gaze and stared intently at Tom, then confidently declared, "Get Mr. Hughes right now." "Huh? Why would a subcontractor think they can summon Mr. Hughes?" Tom laughed smugly, completely unfazed. But the next moment, his face turned pale as he learned a truth he never expected. "My name is Kevin Adams. I work for an automotive parts manufacturer, and I'm 45 years old. My job involves handling the development and production of parts while dealing directly with car manufacturers. Sometimes, I even propose new parts for upcoming vehicle models, a job that is both challenging and rewarding. I love the lively, tense atmosphere of the development site, and whenever I can find the time, I like to visit the production site. To be honest, most people at my level would probably stay in the office and just give orders to their subordinates. But as a graduate of an engineering university, I can't help but want to see the action on the ground. Wearing my workwear and heading to the site, I talk with the younger colleagues, checking things out for myself, and hearing their honest feedback. Some people tell me, "It's time for you to settle down in the office," but to me, being on site is fundamental. This is a routine I refuse to give up. And today, just like always, I changed into my workwear and went to the production site. I checked the production site while listening to the colleagues to see if they have any issues. Just as I was thinking about heading back to the main office, a young woman's voice called out to me. "Hey there! How's it going, Emily?" Smiling brightly in front of me was my sister, Emily. She joined the same company as me right after graduating from college. She's 27, still early in her career. I've always been the kind of person who sticks to my opinions and follows through on whatever I set my mind to. Even at this age, my habit of popping into the production site is probably because of that trait. But when it comes to my much younger sister, I can't always be so assertive. That has a lot to do with our upbringing. Our mother passed away shortly after Emily was born due to complications from childbirth. And when Emily was just 4, our father died of an illness, leaving me, at the age of 22, to take care of both of us. At the time, I was a new employee, incredibly busy, but I refused to give up on raising Emily. I'd drop her off at daycare before heading to work, get my overtime hours waived so I could pick her up, and walk home hand in hand. With the support of those around me, I managed to figure out housekeeping, and Emily grew up quickly and healthily. I was also feeling lost after losing our parents, but having Emily with me kept the loneliness at bay. Before I knew it, she had graduated from college. When she told me she wanted to work at the same company as me after seeing how I managed to balance work and raising her, I was so touched I almost cried. After getting the job at the company, Emily steadily devoted herself to her work, and now she's been entrusted with handling several deals. Just recently, she was chosen as the lead for a major transaction, and she talked about it with her eyes shining. I figured she had stopped me just now to talk about that deal. With that thought, I paused and waited for her to speak. Perfect timing. I just met the person in charge of the $500,000 deal for the new product. Her name is Tiffany, and she's a very calm, composed woman, a truly wonderful person. According to Emily, Tiffany came across as incredibly sincere, and Emily had a great impression of her. During their meeting, Emily learned that Tiffany had originally worked in a technical role but had just transferred to the sales department last month. Because of this, she had a wealth of knowledge and shared many detailed insights about products that Emily, still new to the industry, wasn't yet familiar with. Their conversation flowed so well that what was supposed to be a 2-hour meeting ended up running longer. Tiffany apologized, saying, "I talk too much. How about we have lunch together, Emily?" and treated her to a meal. Emily also tried to decline, saying, even though I was the one asking all the questions, I can't accept being treated to a meal by a business partner. However, Tiffany casually brushed it off, saying that she should let her seniors take care of her. Over lunch, they continued their lively conversation about work and ended up becoming quite close. I understood the conversation well because I've been hearing a lot about the production floor from you, big brother. She really listened attentively to our situation, such a kind person. I hope it turns into a great partnership for both sides. And, by the way, stop calling me big brother at the office. When I pointed it out, Emily smiled and said, I'm sorry, as she gave a small nod of her head. I couldn't help but think how sweet she is, always apologizing so sincerely without any bad intentions. Maybe I'm just being a doting brother. Regardless, seeing Emily adapt to her job and work so passionately made me genuinely happy. Since then, Emily has told me that the meetings have been going well. The parts for the new product have been completed on schedule, and the new production line has been running smoothly without any issues. It seems the product is selling well on the client's side too, so much so that they've already placed an additional order to increase production. It's really going well, huh? I've even heard people talking about the new product from the client's side. It's amazing. Tiffany said that at this rate, the order volume could multiply in the near future. Her words made my eyes widen in surprise. If the volume were to multiply, we'd be looking at a deal worth millions. I hadn't yet received official word, but I hadn't expected the sales to be this strong. That sounds like something we'll be discussing in an internal meeting soon. Yeah, and when that happens, I'll make sure we secure a continued partnership. I'm going to give it my all. A few days later, I actually received an inquiry from the business partner about increasing the order volume. Let's give it our best, big brother. Yeah, Emily, I'm counting on you for this deal. On the day of Emily's big meeting, after some negotiations, the deal grew to a total of $5 million. I was wondering if the conversation was getting lively by now when I received a phone call. The caller was Mr. Hughes from a business partner, who wanted to discuss something about the product. You'd like to discuss something? Actually, I'm at the factory right now, not at the headquarters. Ah, yes, I believe our office is nearby, right? Would you mind coming over? Our representative is currently in the middle of negotiations with your team. I mentioned that I was in my workwear, but he assured me that wouldn't be an issue. So, I got into my car and headed over to the company to meet with Mr. Hughes. When I arrived, he came out personally to greet me. Thank you for making the trip here today. Not at all, we're grateful for the chance to work on such a great deal. We were guided to the meeting room while chatting pleasantly. Along the way, one of his staff approached Mr. Hughes with something urgent. It seemed to be an urgent matter, as Mr. Hughes made the request with a concerned expression. Would you mind waiting in the meeting room for a bit? I'd also love to introduce you to your sister once the meeting wraps up. Of course, I don't mind. I'll wait in the room, I said, walking down the hallway. That's when I heard Emily's voice from a nearby room. Tom, that's inappropriate. Work and personal matters should be separate. Inappropriate? What's inappropriate about it? I'm just suggesting we grab a bite and talk about work in more detail. I heard the voice of the man called Tom, arguing with Emily, coming from the conference room. Feeling a sense of dread, I rushed inside. Inside the room, I saw Emily, her face red with anger, being confronted by a man in his 50s. That must be Tom. A woman in her early 30s stood nearby, trying to stop him. Tom had grabbed Emily's hand, and despite her protests, he wouldn't let go. Fury surged through me, and I stepped between them. What do you think you're doing? Can't you see my sister doesn't want this? What? You are her brother? Tom faltered for a second but then looked me up and down with contempt. When he saw I was wearing workwear, his face twisted into an openly scornful expression. So, the sister's in sales, and the brother's just a grunt on the factory floor, huh? Don't get so high and mighty for a subcontractor. That has nothing to do with it. Let go of my sister and apologize immediately. When I calmly stated it, Tom glared at me, looking upset. He clicked his tongue in frustration, then slumped into the sofa and took a sip of coffee. But almost immediately, he snapped, "It's cold," and slammed the cup down on the table with a loud thud. Don't lecture me like you're somebody important. I'm older, and I'm the department head for the main contractor. You're just a subcontractor. So get out of this room, outsider. There's no hierarchy like that in work. And I'm no outsider, I was called here by Mr. Hughes. I calmly explained the situation to Tom while shielding Emily, who had finally been freed, behind me. Tom didn't like my composed response. His eyes flared with anger, and he raised his voice. Called by Mr. Hughes? What a blatant lie. Are you that dumb? Wait. My brother is. In a flash, Emily stepped forward. Perhaps it was out of a sense of responsibility, knowing she was the one in charge. Just as she leaned in to explain the situation to Tom, it happened. I'm talking right now. Don't interrupt me. Here, cool off with this, useless subcontractor. Without warning, Tom threw his coffee all over Emily's head. Ah. Ha ha. You've really grown into an adult who looks good with coffee now, haven't you? Almost as fitting as your brother in his workwear. Coffee dripped from Emily's hair, soaking into her clothes from her shoulders to her collar. I rushed to help her, but before I could, Emily's eyes sharpened. She glared at Tom and spoke firmly. Get Mr. Hughes immediately. What? Are you two out of your minds? What makes you think subcontractors can summon Mr. Hughes? Tom, showing no remorse, kept grinning and looking at Emily, who was drenched in coffee. He was toying with her, thinking she was in a weaker position than him. His incredibly disrespectful attitude made me so furious that my eyes turned red. At that moment, the woman who had been standing frozen in shock, the one who had been trying to stop Tom, finally moved. Emily, are you okay? This is too much. Tiffany, thank you. The woman called Tiffany hastily pulled out a handkerchief and began wiping Emily's hair and suit. It seems that this woman is the original account manager, Tiffany. Emily, still trembling with anger, never broke her gaze on Tom. What's with that look? If you've got a problem, I can cancel this deal anytime. Tom sneered, laughing without the slightest hint of regret. Just as I was wondering how to handle this despicable man, Mr. Hughes burst into the conference room with incredible speed. What is going on here? His eyes darted around the room, trying to assess the situation, and when he saw me standing grim-faced and Emily drenched in coffee, he gasped in shock. This is outrageous. I'll take care of this immediately. Yes, Mr. Hughes. I'll call security and have them throw these two out. Don't worry. I just taught this uppity subcontractor girl and her factory worker brother a lesson. Tom, looking triumphant, confidently spoke and flashed a smile at Mr. Hughes, as if expecting praise. However, Mr. Hughes's face had turned pale as he quickly apologized to both me and Emily. Kevin, Emily, I'm deeply sorry for what Tom has done. Yes, he repeatedly harassed my sister, despite her objections, and when I called him out on it, he poured coffee over her head. I pointed to Emily's soaked hair and coffee-stained suit. Mr. Hughes looked at the brown puddles forming on the floor and began trembling, bowing even lower in front of us. I am truly, deeply sorry. Tom, what on earth were you thinking? Huh? Why are you bowing to these subcontractors, Mr. Hughes? They didn't show proper respect to us, so I was just teaching them a lesson. Tom clearly still didn't understand the gravity of the situation. Despite the fact that anyone Mr. Hughes would apologize to like this couldn't possibly be just a subcontractor, Tom remained utterly clueless. I was no longer just angry, I was exhausted by his stupidity. With a cold voice, I addressed both Mr. Hughes and Tom. Mr. Hughes, we've had a long-standing relationship, but I'm going to have to reconsider our partnership moving forward. What? Wait, please. If you pull out now, Kevin, it will devastate us. I'll deal with Tom immediately. I beg you, please reconsider. Mr. Hughes, trembling uncontrollably, stared at me with wide, pleading eyes. But I was done. I can't do business with a company where colleagues not only look down on others but go so far as to pour coffee on them. I cannot trust your company with a $5 million deal. Consider the matter closed. $5 million? What kind of ridiculous lie is that? You should be ashamed of yourself. Who do you think you are? Tom, yanking his arm free from Mr. Hughes's grip, shouted at me, still not grasping the severity of the situation. But it was Tiffany, surprisingly, who stepped in to stop him. Though visibly shaking and pale with fear, she mustered her courage and confronted Tom with a determined expression. Don't you know who this is? This is Kevin Adams, the chairman of Adams Holdings. Adams Holdings? You mean the group with 15 companies across the country? No way, this young guy. Tom finally began to understand, beads of cold sweat forming on his forehead. Tiffany, her expression serious, moved closer to him, continuing to scold him. And Emily is Mr. Adams' sister. What have you done? Not only will you cause a $5 million loss, but you'll ruin all future business with them. No. I just thought they were just some random subcontractors. If I had known they were important people, I wouldn't have. Tom, now drained of any defiance, collapsed onto the sofa, unable to even look me in the eye. The truth was, my father had been the president of a nationwide group of companies. The year I started working as a new employee, my father, the company president, passed away. Since then, I unexpectedly took over as president and have been running the company tirelessly, all while taking care of my younger sister, Emily. At the time, with my father's sudden death, unsavory individuals had tried to move in on the company's leadership. It was only with the help of my father's trusted advisors that I was able to navigate the crisis that could have shaken the entire group. The fact that I was my father's son gave me the credibility to unite the group under my leadership. Of course, it was also thanks to the colleagues who believed in me, despite my inexperience, and the support of the senior management that I managed to hold everything together. Whenever I think back to those times, I feel deeply grateful and humbled by the people who stood by me. Years passed, and once the company stabilized, I handed over the role of president to a capable employee, stepping back to serve as chairman. I believed that for the company to grow in a healthy way, it was essential not to cling to family-run leadership. Thanks to the hard work of the colleagues, Adams Holdings has continued to thrive. As chairman, I oversee the 15 companies in the group, keeping a close eye on their performance. I also make a point to visit the field directly, like today, to stay informed about what's happening on the ground. Emily had previously told Tiffany about her background, that she was the daughter of the former president, and that her brother was the chairman. As Emily had mentioned, Tiffany was not the type of person who changed her attitude based on someone's status or position. In a good way. She never gave Tiffany any special treatment and treated her just like the other colleagues. Emily trusted Tiffany deeply for that. As an employee of our company and my sister, Emily has been humiliated here today. This will be the end of our business relationship. Please, wait. Could we have a chance to apologize? Tom, apologize right now. Mr. Hughes, pale as a sheet, bowed repeatedly as he desperately pleaded with me. But Tom, still not fully accepting the situation, stood there blankly, glancing between Emily and me. No one told me someone important was visiting. If I had known, I wouldn't have acted like that. This is entrapment. I've always conducted business as just an ordinary employee. I wanted to be evaluated on my own merits, without relying on my family's position. That's how I plan to prepare myself for a future leadership role, Emily firmly replied. Emily responded firmly, and though Tom mumbled something in an attempt to argue back, he quickly averted his eyes in embarrassment. Well, maybe I was in the wrong this time, but you deceived me too, didn't you? Tom. How dare you still speak so rudely? I coldly bid farewell to Mr. Hughes, who was furious once again. That aside, I couldn't leave Emily in her coffee-soaked state any longer. I'll be taking my leave for today. If I don't, my sister might fall ill. Please wait. We can have fresh clothes brought for her immediately. Just please don't cancel the contract. Mr. Hughes's panic was understandable. Though my company was a subcontractor supplying products, our advanced technology and broad product range made us one of the top firms in the industry. If we pulled out, he'd have no choice but to find another supplier. However, matching the quality and price we provided would be nearly impossible for his company. The cost of production would skyrocket, and some products might not even be replicable. Our work was crucial, not only for this specific deal but for the overall quality and pricing of his company's products. And if Adams Holdings as a group ceased all business with him, it would mean the collapse of everything his company had built. In essence, he would be blacklisted from the entire industry. No wonder he was desperate. Tom, who had been slow to grasp the situation, finally began to understand as he saw Hughes's frantic demeanor. He started bowing repeatedly, but it was too little, too late. I ignored him as I let Emily out of the building, without a second thought. From behind, I could still hear Tom's desperate pleas and Hughes's furious reprimands echoing in the hallway. As I stepped out onto the main street to hail a taxi, I heard light footsteps running after me. It was Tiffany, her face flushed from running so hard. Mr. Adams, Emily, I'm so sorry for what happened. Tiffany, out of breath, bowed deeply to both Emily and me. Tom is my superior, and whenever he deals with women or subcontractors, he acts this way. I was the one in charge of the deal. But somehow he found out the representative was a young woman and forced his way in today. According to Tiffany, Tom's behavior had been a long-standing issue within their company. He would bully subordinates, women, and subcontractors, throwing his weight around to get what he wanted. Yet, when dealing with higher-ups, he was all smiles and charm, which is why the company had never taken any action against him. I actually gathered the courage to confront Tom once. I told him that main contractors and subcontractors should work together as partners, but, shockingly, instead of reflecting on his behavior, Tom had retaliated by spreading false rumors about Tiffany to the HR department, which resulted in her being forcibly transferred from the development department to sales. As his direct subordinate, she had been treated even worse since. After seeing what happened to me, everyone was too scared to stand up to him. But meeting and talking with Emily gave me the strength to face forward again. It turned out Tom's plan had been to push Tiffany out entirely and take over the deal himself. He thought he could interact with Emily, a young woman, and then claim all the credit for the work. But Tiffany hadn't given up and tried her best to stop him, even in the conference room today. But in the end, I wasn't much help and had to rely on Mr. Adams. No, you were a great help. If you hadn't stepped in and held things up, I wouldn't have been there in time to protect Emily. I truly appreciate what you did. I softened my expression slightly. Sure, looking at the result, Emily had been humiliated, drenched in coffee, and insulted. But Tiffany had bravely stood up to someone who had mistreated her in the past, not for herself, but for Emily. That was courage. When I thanked her, she blushed deeply and waved her hands bashfully. From now on, I want to be braver and help create a company where everyone can work comfortably. I won't give up on making this place the ideal workplace after what I've seen today. The ideal company? While it might sound nice to call her kind, Tiffany's demeanor had always given off a somewhat timid impression. However, the Tiffany speaking in front of me now had eyes sparkling with excitement and a face full of hope. When I asked her my question, Tiffany hesitated a little before speaking. A company where people in weaker positions can work comfortably. A place where no one is dismissed just because they're a woman or a subcontractor. I want to create a company that values people for their skills. I see. Well, maybe I can help with that in some way. I shared an idea I'd been thinking of with her. As I spoke, her face brightened, and she nodded enthusiastically, a smile blooming across her face. The next morning, both Mr. Hughes and Tom arrived at my company early. Standing in front of me, they bowed so low it seemed their backs might break. We deeply apologize for the trouble we caused during such an important business deal, Kevin. No amount of apology can make up for the trouble we've caused you. Mr. Hughes was about the same age as my late father. Seeing Mr. Hughes, a man as old as my late father, bowing repeatedly because of his subordinate's misconduct made me feel a bit sorry for him. However, Tom, the cause of all this, though now appearing serious, still had a look in his eyes that betrayed his frustration and unwillingness to truly accept responsibility. In front of me, as I stared coldly, Mr. Hughes bowed even lower and prompted Tom. I've brought him here to offer a formal apology. I'm deeply sorry for my actions, Tom said, bowing deeply. He may still be a department head. But even so, Tom's bow is polite, and his choice of words is proper, yet it doesn't feel like a genuine apology. Whether he's unaware of the hostile look in Tom's eyes or simply ignoring it, Mr. Hughes appealed to me once again. Tom is reflecting deeply on his actions. Please, reconsider your decision about the contract. If it's you, Mr. Hughes, asking so earnestly, I won't say no outright. However, there are conditions. Mr. Hughes's face brightened for a moment at my words. However, once he realized there were conditions, he bit his lip as if steeling himself. I understand. I will take full responsibility and retire. That's not necessary. In fact, I would like to continue our partnership. The issue I want addressed is with Tom. At the mention of his name, Tom visibly flinched, casting a wary glance in my direction, unsure of what was coming. As Tom cautiously wondered what I was going to say, I firmly made my declaration. Tom has harassed people he deems beneath him, subcontractors and female colleagues. I want the company to hold him accountable for that. What is this nonsense? That's an unfounded accusation. He probably couldn't stay silent after hearing what I had to say. Tom, his face turning bright red, began to argue back. I dismissed him easily, continuing to lay out my conditions to Mr. Hughes. It's not nonsense. I witnessed his actions firsthand in the meeting room. Moreover, I want a commitment from your company to create a workplace where women can thrive. Do you really think our company is that difficult for women to work in? Mr. Hughes muttered quietly. He likely doesn't know what's really happening on the ground. And that wasn't surprising. Until now, no matter how much Tiffany and the other colleagues tried to speak up, Tom had crushed any unfavorable opinions using every trick in the book. But Tom, clearly desperate to avoid accountability, lashed out again, spitting his words angrily. These are baseless accusations. Tiffany's just exaggerating things and spreading rumors. No, it's not just Tiffany making these claims. I pulled out a thick stack of papers and handed them over. Tom's eyes widened in shock as he stared at the hefty file. It was a collection of complaints from colleagues reporting Tom's misconduct. In front of a stunned Tom, I explained the contents one by one. You've been overloading your subordinates with unreasonable amounts of work and punishing them with menial tasks like cleaning when they couldn't complete everything. You've also made inappropriate advances toward female colleagues and retaliated against them when they rejected you, getting them reassigned. Where did you get that report? Stop it. Stop reading it. Tom's previous rage evaporated into sheer panic as he lunged to grab the documents from my hand. Before he could, though, Mr. Hughes firmly grabbed his arm and yanked him back. That's enough. We can verify these claims easily, Tom. It's all lies. These are just fabrications from people who can't do their jobs and want to smear me. They just want to get back at me." Tom stammered, pale and desperate to deflect blame. But I wasn't done. I pulled out the final, irrefutable piece of evidence. "No, these reports have been confirmed as true. We've cross-referenced the dates with security camera footage from inside your company. Your actions and words have been captured on tape." I showed him another set of documents. There was already a printout with the report number, the corresponding dates and times, and images extracted from the security camera footage. As for the company whistleblowers, it turns out that Tiffany had been quietly gathering evidence for some time. Many within the company had been troubled by Tom's actions, and people eager to assist Tiffany began coming forward one after another. The number of reports has now exceeded 50. I can't help but wonder just how many times Tom has acted so tyrannically over the years. Thinking about the long-term suffering of the colleagues sends a chill down my spine. Tom flipped through the thick stack of reports silently for a while, but it became clear he realized there was no way to talk his way out of this. Finally, he collapsed to his knees and began sobbing uncontrollably. Shortly after, Tom was fired from the company in a disciplinary dismissal. It was reported that multiple colleagues had filed individual lawsuits against him, and there were even several cases under police investigation. Since the day Mr. Hughes learned the truth about Tom, he had been deeply remorseful, to the point of looking gaunt. He deeply regretted not being able to take any action before it escalated into such a major incident. I'd betrayed the trust of my colleagues. As a president, I feel utterly ashamed. From now on, I will ensure that nothing like this ever happens again by focusing on improving our company's compliance. As promised, just 2 months later, a compliance department was established within the company. Tiffany was appointed as its first head. Every day is busy, but we've finally taken the first step toward creating the ideal company. I'm going to build a workplace where everyone can thrive. From her smile, all I can feel is kindness. There's no trace left of the timid side she once had. As I looked at her radiant smile, I noticed a playful glint in her eyes. I've changed this much thanks to both Emily and you, Mr. Adams. I'm looking forward to continuing to work together. Seeing her smile, I felt optimistic about the future of her company. As your partner, we'll have to keep up, too. Thinking about the bright future ahead, I couldn't help but smile. And so, I continue with my duties as chairman. That said, I still make frequent visits to the factories because I believe staying connected to the field is essential. Desk work alone dulls my senses. As for Emily, she has continued to build her own track record and recently earned a promotion to section manager. She has become a confident and capable employee, able to handle any negotiation with poise and respect. Emily's really flourishing. I have high hopes for her abilities. Thank you. But now it's your turn to step up, big brother. Emily is probably pushing me forward because of my relationship with Tiffany. Since the incident, Tiffany and I have grown much closer. We are now dating with the intention of marriage. I know that, as chairman and as a person, there will always be critical decisions to make. But no matter the situation, I want to face them with courage and make the necessary choices. With that thought in mind, I headed toward the place where Tiffany was waiting for me, the words of my proposal already formed in my heart.